Namaskar and thank you for tuning in to the Economic Brief, a weekly program on economy-related news from an Indian point of view of the world. On the program, the curb on Bangladeshi imports by land is expected to boost India's textile sector. New IMF conditions give Pakistan a reality check on its financial obligations. Indian traders boycott Turkey and Azerbaijan. And Elon Musk says he's concentrating more on business than politics to resurrect his sagging brand image. Before we move on, let's listen to Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman highlight the importance of a market-driven economy and the role that the Competition Commission of India plays in safeguarding the spirit of liberalization. She was speaking at the Competition Commission of India's 16th Annual Day celebrations recently.
As India integrates further with the global value chains and digital ecosystems, maintaining open and contestable markets will be crucial to our competitiveness. The Competition Commission of India, through its unique mandate and cross-sectoral role, will be a key enabler in this journey, whether it is facilitating market access for MSMEs, addressing barriers that impede fair competition, promoting digital inclusion, or ensuring that the consumers benefit from better choices, lower prices, and improved quality. Congratulations to the Commission.
So India has put curbs on Bangladeshi imports, and this is going to help India's textile sector in a big way. They're seeing about 1,000 crore rupees worth of business opportunity. That is about $118 million worth. We know that the GGFT has prohibited, in fact, Bangladeshi garments from being imported via the land route. And the imports were off to the tune of about $705 million. That's about 6,000 crore rupees. Now, this move, of course, is in a way, what it has done, it has prevented the surge of duty-free Bangladeshi imports. Now, India and Bangladesh don't have an FTA, but because of the closeness of the governments, there was a lot of movement into our country of Bangladeshi products. And that was being misused, in fact, by China, because a lot of Chinese garments were finding their way into the Indian market through the Bangladesh route. These curbs now have put an end to that. Imports were around 6,000 crore rupees, as we said. So this particular opportunity now is going to help the Indian textile sector to transform itself, but there are going to be a few short-term challenges. In fact, it's not only the garment sector that's going to be improved. There are opportunities in plastics, in melamine and wooden furniture, in fruit and flavored carbonated drinks that used to come from there, processed food items, cotton and cotton yarn used to come in from Bangladesh, dyes and other industrial inputs. Logistic costs are going to go up in Bangladesh as well. So that's one of the issues. But the short-term disruptions could be a problem. There could be a problem in the supply chain, and that could affect some of the global apparel brands. There are already reports that brands like Zara, for instance, Gap, JCPenney, and all these are now shifting towards Indian suppliers already. So that is what we were talking about. There's a huge demand will start moving towards the Indian brands. So they're sourcing their products, at least their raw materials, from India. So brands, of course, are looking, as we said, for alternative suppliers. And Bangladesh also has a foreign exchange crisis as a result of this. And their rising transport costs, which are making their cost efficiency a little difficult to maintain. Hence, India would be a more popular market. Prices of popular brands could increase in the short term. There are already Tirupur and Noida are seeing a surge in demand, according to reports. Of course, there are two sea routes that are allowed. One is Kolkata and Nhava Sheva. These are allowed, but of course, the costs of sea, there are limitations to Bangladesh to use the sea route. So they had great advantages of using the land route, but as a result of the problems that they are currently facing, with India that has now been put to a stop. Before I introduce you to our guest on the program, let's listen to the spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs. He sent out a strong message, in fact, to Turkey. He wants them to urge Pakistan to end cross-border terrorism. Let's listen to what he said.
On the question of Turkey, well, we expect Turkey to strongly urge Pakistan to end its support to cross-border terrorism and take credible and verifiable action against the terror ecosystem that it has harbored for decades now. And relations, as you know, are built on the basis of sensitivities to each other's concerns.
Well, Ambassador Veena Sikri, a former senior diplomat who served as India's High Commissioner to Bangladesh and keenly follows the subcontinent, now joins us. Thank you very much, ma'am, for being with us. Now, how has India's ban on imports via the land routes impacted Bangladesh's trade and their overall economic stability?
Well, I think I first would like to emphasize that under Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina for the last 15 years, because Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was very sensitive about India's security red lines, and so we had a very good understanding on security. As a result of that, a great and mutually beneficial cooperative trade partnership had developed between India and Bangladesh, and we were working to the mutual benefit of both countries and facilitating each other's exports.
Yeah.
Even in the absence of a bilateral FTA, India had given completely open access to all goods from Pakistan coming to India, including, except for tobacco and alcohol, everything could come
from Bangladesh, you're saying? From Bangladesh.
Bangladesh goods
yeah.
coming to India, yes,
Yeah.
sorry, Bangladesh goods coming to India. And, except for alcohol and tobacco, everything could come to India free of duty. It was a virtually, a completely open free trade arrangement given to Bangladesh. And as a result of which, their exports to India increased enormously. I remember when I was there at a time, even the exports from Bangladesh to India had not even cost 50 million US dollars. And I doubled it to 100 million and felt very happy. But now it had reached almost 2 billion US dollars.
Indeed.
But what we have seen that among the first things that the Yunus regime did after Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina left Bangladesh was to put more and more curbs on Indian export in different ways. First, they are the ones who decided that, we will not allow trading through the land ports. We will, not. They wanted to reduce the dependency in Bangladesh on goods coming from India. Okay. So they put all kinds of curbs. We should make goods coming from other countries cheaper. For example, we know that although India had a huge surplus balance of trade with Bangladesh, all the goods India was sending was used by Bangladesh in the export industry. Cotton yarn, textile machinery, man-made fiber, all these were important inputs at very reasonable prices, which allowed the Bangladesh ready-made garment industry to be very competitive globally. And we know that Bangladesh was was the second largest ready-made garments exporter in the world. But when Bangladesh started putting restrictions on Indian imports into Bangladesh, thinking that now Bangladesh will buy from Pakistan, from Turkey, even from USA, it didn't work. Because these goods coming from these countries, the cost of transport was much higher, the time taken for transport was much higher, whereas India across a land border could get goods from anywhere across India in just 3-4 days.
And the access also to the Indian market. But ma'am, what are the broader geopolitical and economic implications of Bangladesh's shift? You were mentioning already about Turkey, about China. They seem to be shifting in that direction.
Well, I did see a delegation coming from Turkey to Bangladesh and meeting Yunus and promising Yunus that we will replace everything India gives to you. But this is easier said than done. What has actually happened is that Bangladesh factories are closing down. Bangladesh is not able to meet its export orders. Their factories are closing down. And as you have very correctly pointed out, many of those orders are coming to India. So it does not matter if you say that India's exports to Bangladesh may go down, but those items which are going down are going to be used in India. to boost our exports of ready-made garments. And this is a challenge to which the Indian industry, as you mentioned in Tirupur and Noida and other places, they responded very well. And they've taken up the challenge. We must know that most of the buyers of ready-made garments, all the multinational companies, their buyers were actually based in India. And they were going to Bangladesh and then, finalizing the contracts and so on. But now these buyers are based in India are turning to Indian companies, and India has successfully taken up the challenge. So, and Bangladesh, on the other hand, their export growth has halved. Bangladesh, because of the bilateral trade with India, had a very robust 6% rate of growth. But this year is going to be less than 3%. And a lot of unemployment, high inflation, and even some consumer goods imports into Bangladesh have been affected by the Bangladesh trade restrictions. So all in all, I would say that Bangladesh has actually harmed itself by putting in the trade restrictions on India. India has been forced to respond. We are cutting down imports of goods from Bangladesh, except by the sea route. This is going to delay Bangladesh imports further. Then Indian garment factories will have a further chance to step in and increase their production. This is all in all going to affect Bangladesh poorly, but I think the Indian sector will not be so poorly affected because we have taken up the challenge to increase.
But Ambassador Sikri, are there concerns for India's northeast and regional connectivity? Is the ban going to impact India's northeast?
I think that Bangladesh, for example, one of the things that Mohammed Yunus had been saying, very unfair, nasty and unacceptable things about the northeast. He even went to China and told people in China that, you come to Bangladesh, we are controlling Indian northeast, so we'll tell you what to do there, you trade there, etc. Now, India has not taken at all well. Understandably, we have rejected such kind of statements made by Yunus. He responded angrily to them. And now that we have stopped the trade with Bangladesh except by the sea route, yes, you're right that certain goods that were going across the land route from Bangladesh to the northeast, like you mentioned, carbonated drinks and some food products and so on. I think this is a very good opportunity for the northeast to increase its own manufacturing capacity. These are all items which are not difficult at all. We know, for example, that let us take something like oranges. It was very strange. Fresh oranges were going from Northeast India to Bangladesh, being manufactured into fruit juice and carbonated drinks, and then coming back to India, to the Northeast, at 2 or 3 times the price. So this is actually, it was very harmful for the economy, for the economic growth.
Obviously, the Northeast can develop their own skills, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
But stay with us, ma'am, for our next story, which is about Pakistan. Now, the new IMF conditions for Pakistan require strict tax reforms, energy sector adjustments, as well as military spending cuts, alongside transparency improvements. While these measures aim to stabilize the economy, they pose political and social challenges, especially since the government is keen on financing the army as a top priority. The International Monetary Fund recently imposed 11 new conditions on Pakistan for the release of its next bailout tranche. The IMF has already bailed Pakistan out 25 times. Pakistan must secure parliamentary approval for a $63 billion budget, including $3.8 billion for development. It must implement agricultural income tax reforms and publish a governance action plan per IMF recommendations. Inflation adjustments are required for cash transfer programs. Institutional plans for 2028 must be outlined. Energy tariffs must stay at cost recovery levels by July 1st, while gas tariffs must adjust semi-annually by February 15, 2026. The captive power levy must be formalized through legislation, and the debt surcharge cap must be removed. Special technology zone incentives must end by 2035, and import restrictions on used cars must be lifted.
But whatever we need to do in terms of ensuring that our defense requirements are met will be met.
We heard him right. Defense budget. A clear indication of what India has been protesting against for long, that funding Pakistan would imply funding its army to carry out a proxy war by terrorism against India.
Because we are the victims of this profligacy of funds being used to promote terrorism, to have huge militias being funded, being promoted, and being provided with various weaponry.
Pakistan's government is pushing a false narrative to maintain public morale despite military setbacks. It recently promoted Army Chief Asif Munir to Field Marshal despite a major defeat by India.
India taught Pakistan a lesson which it should not forget for decades. India taught Pakistan a lesson that if the Pakistanis have any self-respect, should end with Asim Munir in prison, if not on the gallows.
Pakistan's efforts to hide military failures won't alter reality. IMF conditions will hit multiple sectors, raising energy prices, cutting subsidies, and increasing taxes, which could spark protests. Limits on special technology zones may deter investment, while funding the army may further destabilize governance. The Economic Brief, DD India. Ambassador Veena Sikri continues to be with us. Ma'am, how will the IMF's new conditions, including tax reforms and subsidy cuts, impact Pakistan's economic stability?
Well, I think we have to recall that it is India who expressed a strong opposition to the IMF decision to actually extend this additional tranche of $1 billion or $2 billion to Pakistan right in the middle of the hostilities that they had imposed on India, the attack on the innocent tourists in Pahalgam, and our very, very furious response to that. So I think that India not only expressed its concern, but India abstained in the voting, which in the IMF is very serious because there is no provision for negative voting there. So, we said that this is absolutely unheard of, that in the middle of these kind of hostilities and the kind of action that Pakistan is taking, that you should give them an additional tranche. Now, it is in response to that that IMF has now introduced these 11 very serious additional conditionalities on Pakistan. And these, I think, are going to be very difficult for Pakistan to meet. It includes the cutting of subsidies, which has always been a problem with Pakistan because they please their people only by giving them one subsidy after another so that, they don't have to do anything and they get money for nothing. Then, of course, increasing taxes, reducing the defense budget. I mean, actually, Pakistan has announced a huge increase in the defense budget after, the 7th May attack on the terrorist facilities, and after their absolutely barbaric attack on the pilgrims, on the tourists in Pahalgam. And, this is absolutely something that cannot go on because the IMF is going giving the money and they're using it for defense. So they're going to make them even more aggressive. And in fact, not only that we do know that when the Indian strike on 7th of May targeted the terrorist headquarters in Murid-K, in Bahawalpur, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba, the first thing that Pakistan did, because by that time they had got that news about the 1 million additional tranche or $2 billion additional tranche. Yes. They announced that we'll give 14 crores to Asad Mazur, whose relatives had died in that attack. About 100 terrorists died in the Indian attack on the terrorist headquarters. So they said, no, we're going to give him money and we're going to rebuild all the headquarters. Can you imagine a huge amount of money? Where they're going to take it from? They're going to take it from the IMF tranche, from the IMF money. So, this is absolutely unacceptable that a country like Pakistan should be doing this. And we have raised strong objections to that.
Indeed, ma'am. But what are the, geopolitical implications of Pakistan's defense budget priorities? Especially, India's long-standing concerns that you're talking about.
Well, we are deeply concerned because we do know, for example, that in the attacks by India on 7th May and then subsequently on 10th May in response to Pakistan's own escalation and their own efforts to even rain missiles and bombs on Golden Temple, on schools and colleges, we do know that Pakistan's present set of equipment, even the air defense system, the Chinese missiles that they have been given, the Chinese, the drones. In fact, there's supposed to have been 6 plane loads of drones arriving from Turkey in Pakistan, and then they were used on India, and huge swarms of drones were sent. We do know that none of them operated well. None of them hit their targets. And in the first few days, Pakistan was trying to talk up the performance of the Chinese defense equipment, and the Chinese defense company stocks went up. But subsequently, after the truth became known and India was able to show visuals, even of unexploded so-called high-flaunting Chinese missiles, unexploded when they fell in Punjab and Jammu and Kashmir, the Chinese defense company stocks plummeted because they knew that what they have supplied to India, what they have supplied to Pakistan are total duds. And, either they have supplied, inadequately, they supplied non-performing equipment, very poor quality, or they don't
Sure.
have the capacity at all to manufacture high-end defense equipment.
Ambassador Veena Sikri, that's all the time we have for this discussion. Thank you very much, ma'am, for joining us and helping us broadening our understanding of the situation as it stands. Now, moving on to our next story. The Indian traders have boycotted Turkish goods. Now, the traders cite concerns that Turkey's economic ties with Pakistan indirectly fund activities against India. Some trade bodies have asked for suspending flights to Turkey. The Indian travel platforms have issued advisories against visiting Turkey and Azerbaijan. Anu Kaushik breaks it down for us.
The past few years saw Turkey become a popular destination for Indian travelers courtesy of relative affordability, improved flight connectivity and Instagram reels. But the trend has drastically changed now, with Indians calling for a boycott of Turkey due to its support for Pakistan following Operation Sindoor. Boycott Turkey calls have been gaining momentum across social media platforms in India, with netizens urging Indians to avoid travelling to Turkey and Azerbaijan, which is also an ally of Pakistan. Travel website Make My Trip has discontinued all promotions and offers for Turkey and Azerbaijan, while Ease My Trip has issued an advisory for the two countries. From traders to educational institutes, several sectors have joined the campaign. According to Make My Trip, Azerbaijan and Turkey bookings have decreased by 60%, while cancellations have surged by 250%. India's aviation watchdog, the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security, revoked the security clearance for Turkish firm Çelebi in the interest of national security. Çelebi's passenger and cargo ground handling services covered various airports, including Delhi, Mumbai, and Chennai. Prominent institutions like IIT Bombay, JNU, Jamia Millia Islamia, and TIS have either suspended or terminated their memorandums of understanding with Turkish universities. In a meeting which was attended by representatives from 24 states, the Confederation of All India Traders decided to boycott trade with Turkey and Azerbaijan. Goods that India import from Turkey range from nuclear reactor parts to apples and marbles. Let's now take a look at the economic ties between India and Turkey. With revenue reaching $61.1 billion, tourism accounted for 12% of Turkey's GDP in 2024. That year, nearly 3.3 lakh Indians visited the country, spending around $400 million. Notably, Indian visitors increased by 20.7%, indicating that India was a growing market for Turkish tourism. Bilateral trade between India and Turkey stood at $10.4 billion in financial year 2024. India's exports to Turkey stood at $6.7 billion, while India's imports from the country stood at $3.8 billion. The Boycott Turkey campaign is still unfolding, but in the long run, a sustained campaign can take a toll on the Turkish economy, which is already reeling under a currency crisis and high inflation. Notably, the campaign by Indians has boosted a similar initiative by the Armenian National Committee of America. Bilateral ties are often multifaceted. The Boycott Turkey campaign reflects that geopolitical decisions have economic consequences. With camera person Bhim Singh, this is Anu Kaushik reporting for the Economic Brief, DD India.
Now, billionaire businessman Elon Musk is stepping back from political spending after a period of high-profile support for US President Donald Trump. But while his political ties may be cooling, Musk's business interests, especially Tesla, are still very much in the spotlight. Diptanshu Kashyap brings us more on this, and we leave you with his report. Thank you very much for watching the Economic Brief. Namaskar.
Billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk says he's stepping back from campaign spending and turning his focus firmly back to business. Speaking from Texas at the Qatar Economic Forum, Musk made it clear he has done what he set out to do politically and now wants to focus on his companies.
In terms of political spending, I'm going to do a lot less in the future.
And why is that?
I think I've done enough.
According to a report by the Wall Street Journal, Musk gave a total of $238.5 million in cash and in-kind contributions during the cycle to America PAC, the Super Political Action Committee he founded. As per Federal Election Commission filings, Musk was the largest donor in the 2024 election cycle to either party. But Musk's political pullback comes after months of backlash, not just for his role in Trump's campaign, but also for leading the controversial Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. In Wisconsin, Musk invested heavily in a pivotal Supreme Court race that became a referendum on his influence. Despite pouring millions into the campaign, his candidate lost decisively. Critics questioned whether Musk's business empire was clashing with his political ambitions, with some calling him toxic. Musk's favorability rating dropped from 41% to 33% after a key loss in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. Public approval of DOGE stood at 41%, with 58% disapproving of its performance. Musk and his political group America PAC spent over $22 million in Wisconsin alone, but failed to sway the outcome. As public criticism mounted, even some Republican strategists distanced themselves from Musk. Now Musk says he is returning to what he knows best: business and technology. He continues to lead Tesla and SpaceX and is engaged in a legal battle with OpenAI. Politically, he says he sees no reason to spend more money for now, but whether that will hold true as the next election cycle heats up remains uncertain. Deeptanshu Kashyap's report for the Economic Brief, DD India.